Hello and welcome to What's Up with Zoo. I'm one of your hosts, Harry. Joining me is...
Alice. Hello. Good start.
And we'll be diving into the world of nature, letting them know what makes animals tick, and also some of the other things behind the scenes.
As well, from the big and the mighty to, as well as the science of what makes things tick about animals and wildlife, conservation, education. I've already messed this up and it's only been 2 minutes. So.
Well, it's the first time we're doing this, so it's bound to be some things. But yes, the scientists behind it, some of the research and the explorers, and we're going to be getting in depth with how these animals work. Now, you may have seen me on our previous episode with lovely Tony, as we did a bit of an interview. But Alice, you're new to the podcast. You'll be my co-host. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
So my name is Alice. I am Head of Education here at Wingham Wildlife Park. Before I worked at Wingham, I used to work with horses, training horses, things like that, working with horses, working with young children as well around horses. But then I fancied kind of a career change. I still wanted to work with animals and I still wanted to work with children. And then I just saw this job come up and it was just pot luck, really. I applied for it, thought I'll go for it, and I absolutely love it. And now I'm head of the department, which I absolutely love. And it's, as you know, it's a very important job.
Yes.
Education and zoos and things.
Very important, yes. So we've gone from horse whisperer to education whisperer now.
Exactly that. They do say never work with kids or animals, and I work with both. So.
Yes. Yeah. It's a fascinating combination of things to work with, and everything doesn't want to work with you. Now, this is obviously the start of our episode with both of our hosts here, and we're going to be moving on to the subject of which we like to talk about, which is, of course, animals. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. We thought we'd start off with probably a very iconic and classic animal, which I'm sure many of you will know about. It has plenty of history, mythology around it, and I'm sure almost anyone can recognize it from just its mane alone. We are, of course, talking about the African lion. Pretty cool animal, wouldn't you say?
Honestly, amazing. They're iconic, like you say, in so many different ways, and everyone knows what a lion looks like. Everyone knows what a lion is.
It's amazing how so many different cultures, you probably even have no access to lions naturally, associate with them so strongly. I mean, in the UK, we don't really have lions anymore.
No.
But you see them everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, throughout history as well, like the Greeks, mythology, things like that. Rome, obviously.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, all around the world.
They are extraordinary animals, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about them. But we just want to quickly clarify, these are African lions. Now, there are different subspecies of lions, and for those who don't know what a subspecies is, it's essentially a slightly different variation of an animal, maybe genetically or physically a little bit different, but still capable of breeding with that same one. And we're going to be focusing only on the ones that live in Africa and not very beautiful, well, very, very rare Asiatic lions. So, for these lovely animals, we're going to do a little bit of a species specs. This is our section where we talk about the animals, so you guys know at home what they look like. I'm sure everyone knows what a lion looks like, but as we go along, we'll talk about more obscure animals, and this will become very important for our listeners. So, would you like to describe what a lion looks like?
They're the second largest cat in the world. Many people don't realise that tigers are actually a little bit bigger. There's obviously a gender difference as well. Males, they have those gorgeous big manes. They have those for a few different reasons. Through evolution, it protects their neck, because a male's main job in a pride is to protect his family. So he needs to, if he needs to, is fight for his family and the safety of his pride. Because if another male comes along and wants to take over his pride, then cubs that may have been born by him will also be killed, unfortunately. But that's, for the male's perspective, to carry on his own genetics. He doesn't want to father any other males' offspring, things like that. Obviously, the mane makes them look bigger and scarier as well to other males, make them more intimidating, so maybe they don't need to fight. But also, their manes, as they get darker, is also age as well.
It's age and testosterone, from what I've read. Yes.
Age and testosterone,
So
big and scary.
Yeah, big boys, big hair.
Exactly. Yes.
And so they are lovely cats. Of course, many will know what they are. 4 legs and very, very big teeth. of course, and
Oh, yeah.
a lovely sandy coat to help camouflage them. And as you were describing, the lovely manes are only found on the males. Females, still very pretty, but I don't think they get the kind of iconic look that the males do.
No, very true, yeah.
Yeah, unless you are now a lioness fan of football, you don't probably see a lot of lionesses in media that much. Now, they are very, very big cats, as you were saying, 1.2 meters tall, and they can be about 1.6 to 2.1 meters in length. Pretty long, especially if they're standing up against you. I mean, when they're down there, you think, oh, it's nothing of it. And then they walk close to you and go, oh, goodness.
Yeah.
They're quite big. Now, they're also pretty heavy. I mean, they're anywhere between 150 to 250 kilograms. And when you're packed full of muscle,
Yeah.
that's pretty scary. Wouldn't want to come up against that in the wild.
Especially with those teeth and those claws.
Yeah, no. No, they will do a lot of damage. I think there's a lot of people say, oh, I can take an animal in a fight. Lions, no.
Yeah, especially on like the TikTok lives and things, like I just want to go in and cuddle up that cat. And
Yeah. Goes wrong. Yeah. We talked about this with Tony last time. Like, you do have some more friendly individual animals, but as a whole, don't go in with a lion.
No.
Not a great idea. And now this is quite the unusual thing, because I think a lot of people see lions and they're quite a big cat, so surely they live quite a long time. They don't actually live that long, do they?
No, unfortunately not. They do live longer in captivity. I think it's 20 years in the wild?
20 years if they're exceedingly lucky. It's more likely captivity that they'll live 20 years.
And then, but obviously in captivity they don't have things to worry about, like us humans poaching them or diseases or...
No, just a check-up from the vet every now and then.
Yeah, exactly that.
But yes, around 10 to 14 years in the wild, which is not terribly long. It's the same sort of age as maybe your house cat at home, depending. So yeah, I'm afraid big cat, not so big, long lifespan. And they reach about sexual maturity at about 3 to 4 if they're female, and a little bit, 2 to 3 I should say, and then 3 to 4 if they're male. So the males develop a little bit later, especially with those manes. They too take a while to grow in, just like my hair, to be honest. Takes a while to grow and then it just falls off. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, because when it comes to lions, they are unique in the idea that they are group hunters.
Yes.
So a pride, I'm sure everyone knows about it. A pride is a group of lions, but there are sort of different groups of lions. Do you want to take us through what type of groups of lions we have?
No, because I don't know what you're talking about.
So to fill you in, obviously there's a pride. Pride is what we associate most with lions, and that is usually a group of females with maybe 1 to 4 males. It doesn't have to be too many males, but the idea is that usually there's one real breeding male. Mm-hmm. That's been kind of rebuked recently. Sometimes a little bit of promiscuity going on, and sometimes they'll breed amongst themselves. But usually there'll be a small amount of males and a large number of females, with the females doing most of the work. Supposedly, 90% of kills within a pride are done by the females.
Yeah, because the male's main role is to protect, like I say before, to protect his family and things like that. But it is such a clever evolutionary trait to work as a team, to work as a pride compared to other cats. I think a tiger has a success rate of like 1 in 10. Every hunt is successful.
It's very
Whereas
low.
a pride, I think it's like 80% of their hunts is...
They're much more likely to grab their prey and get on. And we'll go into this later with their ability to hunt, because they can actually coordinate rather well. It's not just, let's all go for it and see if we can get that.
See what happens,
Just get that zebra, we'll do it.
There's a game plan.
Yeah, there is a game plan, exactly that. But that's a pride. And so lots of females and maybe a few males. But there are different sort of groups. So a coalition is another interesting one, where it's just a group of males. Now, this is usually males that are, maybe they're related, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're just banded together. And this is when they're not in a pride. And they'll go, right, okay, there's nothing we can do. The pride of a bear's got a really strong male, the pride of a bear's got a really strong male. So we'll just work together, live together for a little bit of defense. Because despite being quite large predators, even in their home country of Africa, home continent of Africa, they still get picked on by other things.
Hyenas is one of them, isn't it? They're the big bullies of the African savannah.
Important for getting rid of all those diseases.
Scavengers, but
they still
just do whatever they want, don't
they
they?
really do. And especially when they're mobbing you with over 30 of them, there's not much a lion can do against all those teeth.
I know.
No. So the coalition of lions, they'll help each other. They are not as coordinated as a pride might be.
Yeah.
So they were more likely to just go run at it and try and grab whatever they're trying to get. And maybe one will help them out. But there's less coordination, which is quite interesting. Whether that's a trait because the males don't need to, they are just so big, they don't need to have that extra help.
Yeah.
Or it's more that the females have worked out because they are long lineage, or probably from the same line, but they go, we should just help each other. We can get it.
Well, it does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Whether that's a boy or girl thing, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. You said it now.
Yeah.
Like you say, you only need like 1 or 2 males to a whole pride. So there's loads of males. Like male lions tend to be solitary in the wild. So them banding together opens up so many opportunities for them. They can bring down prey much bigger than they usually would be able to get by themselves.
Yes.
Hunting's a lot easier. And they wouldn't have to feed as often if they're getting bigger prey. So it does make sense.
It does. But funnily enough, they're still actually not terribly successful.
No.
They're more successful than the other group, which we'll talk about in a second. But yes, they are able to take down more and greater prey. And some of them are known because maybe they're a bit bolder by themselves. They will go after certain larger prey. So we'll talk about what they eat in just a second. I'm sure many of you already know. But they will occasionally go after giraffes and elephants.
Yeah.
And most prides will avoid that unless absolutely necessary.
Confidence is key.
Confidence is key. Maybe just a bit of boyish bravado.
Yeah.
Now, the other group, of course, is nomads. Nomads are ones that are in between prides or in between coalitions. And most of the time, these will be males. Yeah. You do get the occasional female. Maybe she's done something wrong. I don't know, maybe she's
been shunned.
Yeah, shunned. She brought the wrong presents to a family gathering.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they've been rejected. They've been pushed out by their parents to go find their own. And this can range in years. So sometimes they can be by themselves for maybe 4 to 6 years by themselves before they finally get into a pride, maybe either pushing out another male or maybe just joining another coalition and then becoming part of another pride that way. But yeah, you find a fair amount of nomads, and most of them will be males, and they're usually about 1 or 2. So one maybe by themselves, that's usually just one that's been recently rejected, but sometimes you do find brothers together.
Yeah.
And which is why in captivity you do find African lions together in groups of 2 if they're males, and maybe a larger pride. And here at Wingham, we used to have 2 lovely boys. Yes. Do you want to take us through our lovely boys here at Wingham that we had?
Clarence and Brutus. They joined us in 2011, off the top of my head.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, we lost Brutus in 2022 to health-related issues. I believe it was lung cancer. But back to the beginning, Clarence and Brutus, they joined Wingham, but they didn't have a very good start in life. We actually rescued them from a French circus, which we all know now is very ethically and morally wrong. They weren't treated at all well. Clarence, even if you come and visit Clarence, he's got scars all over his back. He's also got one eye that's slightly different colour to the other eye. We could only assume that was some sort of blunt force trauma that's caused one of his eyelids to be permanently closed.
It's very noticeable from a distance.
Yeah, and they're the only ones, visible wounds that we can see. We don't know mentally what was wrong with them. But when they did join us, they were so overwhelmed by just the amount of space that they had. It took them so long to calm down and get used to their new surroundings. I think it took them a week to even come out into their new enclosure.
So they were kept in quite a small enclosure when they were in the
Chinese cage, and obviously not treated very well. So I think it was a bit overwhelming for them, obviously. But once they did start to settle, as everybody knows, they did amazingly. And Clarence, even though now he's on his own, like we were saying briefly before, lions tend to be solitary in the wild. It would be way too dangerous to introduce him to any other kind of lion, just because of his past as well. He's only ever known his brother, and also if he ever got introduced, especially to a male lion, they would just fight, and it would get brutal and probably to the death. So
it's quite sad. Yes. So a lot of people do ask about our lovely lion here, and this stems into their behaviour, where when a male takes over a pride, it's usually them fighting the other male. And once they've scared him away, it's like, right, that's my pride now. Not always. Yeah. Sometimes the females can reject the male, and in a way they can fight them off and go, you know what, we don't like your stuff. Your fashion trend's a bit off. And this can often lead to very serious injuries, which is why here in captivity, you have to be very careful how you intermix lions.
Yeah.
It's not always just, just throw them in. And
see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly that. Because males may be bigger than females, but the numbers on the female are on the female side, so
Exactly,
they can definitely
yes.
take a male.
The females band together,
Yes.
and they're strong. And speaking of their strength, let's talk about their hunting. So, as I mentioned, they're unique in the fact that they live together, but they also unique in how they communally hunt.
Yes.
So, a pride of lions.
Yes.
Females do all the work, as we mentioned. They are really well coordinated. I mean, more so than you might expect. So they will often flank animals. And for those of you who don't know what flanking means, essentially you will have one female that will take up the rear and will just like kind of watch it and stalk their prey. So for example, this could be a zebra, could be a wildebeest, and they'll get very, very close, low on the ground, keep using that lovely camouflage to their advantage. But then they will usually have more females at the left or right of where that animal will be, maybe even beyond it, basically creating a pincer movement to make sure that it can't escape at least one set of jaws.
Yeah.
And that means that, as you said, their success rate in hunting is very, very high. They will then all gang up on this one thing, usually a weakened or older individual, because you kind of have to in the wild. You want to
Makes
take
their life easier, doesn't it, really?
Makes their life easier, yes, but
Yeah.
it's also a good chance that you're less likely to get injured as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And then they'll all run at it very, very quickly, and
Yeah.
they'll then grab it. And this means that they will take down their food, and then the male will come along and go, ooh, that's a nice bit. And they will usually take the best pickings for themselves, which is rather unfair on the lioness, I must admit. But I will say, occasionally the male lion will join in the hunt, especially sometimes larger prey. They will go, right, I'm going to take that one on because
I'll
I'm
give
a
you a
big
hand.
one. Yeah. I'll help out.
I've got
Don't
nothing
worry.
on today. I'll come
It's
help
like when
you out.
somebody's done all the cooking and then like, I'll do a bit of the washing up. Washes a teacup and then goes away. So because of that, they are very, very good at what they do. And because of this amazing ability, they can take down exceedingly large prey. So wildebeest and zebra, they're very big, but they can range to something like an elephant or giraffe. Now, both of those are not to be messed with in the wild.
No, or even buffalo. They're one of the most dangerous ones
Yes.
in Africa.
Very
Terrifying.
true.
Yeah,
I mean, giraffes are one of your favourite animals.
love them.
Do you want to explain why giraffes are so dangerous to
Yes.
lions?
Not only are they one of the strangest animals in the world, they've also obviously got very long legs. And with these long legs, they can actually kick in any direction. And they've got such a powerful kick. One kick from a giraffe can kill a lion. So I would not recommend going anywhere near a giraffe or their legs.
No, it's why our keepers have to be very careful.
Exactly, yeah. There's
Lots of
safety.
gates.
Yeah, because long legs, long reach, and in any direction, it's a good defense mechanism.
Yes, so they're very good, but they usually won't go for those sort of animals. It's usually going to be the
Probably
smaller
not worth
ones.
the trouble, is it?
No, there are a few select prides that will go after almost giraffes exclusively,
Oh, okay.
but that's more of a desperation tactic rather than I love giraffes so much. They'd find them very tasty.
Delicious, yes.
Trying to get to a point where you can actually do damage to a giraffe is insane because, I don't know, you need a little ramp or something. You have to jump
A big
very,
run up.
Yeah, very, very high. Now, coalitions, as we mentioned, they're more of just a brute force tactic. They'll mostly just run at something and try and grab it.
Hope for the best.
There's a little bit of sneaking. I will give them some credit, but the amount of coordination is not nearly as much as with a pride. And of course, nomads, they're usually by themselves. So they're usually going to go after much smaller prey.
Yeah.
And their odds of success are much lower. So they will kind of just, only when they're very, very hungry, will they like go out and they realize, oh, actually, you know what? This wildebeest is really quick. I don't think I can actually get it. I'll go after this warthog. Oh, this warthog's really quick as well. I can't get that either. Pumbaa is very quick.
Off to Simone.
So they're not particularly good at hunting. But when they are together in the pride, they're
Stronger
amazing.
than ever. Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Much like humans when they are apes together strong, we're all better. Now, I'm sure many people have heard an iconic roar from a lion. Their communication is fantastic.
Yes.
And even here, if Clarence was to roar now, our lovely lion, we could hear it from here very easily.
100%, yeah. I'm sure you know when we do the TikTok lives, he loves just lazing around. He's great viewing, but then you leave and then he starts roaring and then you run back and then he stops. He does it on purpose. I'm on to you, Clarence.
He's a good boy, but his roaring is very particular. He
It's usually in the mornings and the evenings he likes to roar, but some days he's just got a lot to say for himself.
Yeah.
He's just chatting.
Now, roaring for lions is a really important communication. For many of them, it is about establishing territory and saying, this is where we are, every other lion, go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really important that when you do a roar, that it is to your best of your abilities, because it's a great way to assess strength as well. So whereas males will do a lot of roaring, females will also join in on it as well, because often prides will fight one another. So it's not just the boys that are fighting, it is also the girls every now and then.
So is it like if there was 2 prides of lions, it'd be like, obviously the more lions you have, the bigger your threat you are. So the more roars, the more intimidating. That sort of vibe.
Exactly, yes. So they'll judge it by how many roars there are. They'll also judge it on how deep the vocals are, because that usually suggests it's a bigger animal.
Yeah.
And so they will assess, go like, okay, that's quite a deep voice.
Is it worth showing up to this? Yeah.
There's about 4 of them there. I'm not going to take that. My odds are I'm going to win.
Yeah.
So really important for other prides and even coalitions and nomads to work out who is where and also how strong those are, because you may go, that one's getting a little bit old now. I think I can take him.
I can take him.
And so they will start coming closer and closer until inevitably they might fight.
Yeah.
And this is when it becomes very important for everyone to be on guard. So roaring is a very good way to also communicate to one another and say, where are you?
Yeah.
So a roar can be heard about 5 miles away. That's the usual average.
It's pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. I mean, I wish I could do that for my parents sometimes. But yes, 5 miles, long distance. And this can be used as to establish their territory. But also, let's say one of them has walked off, especially if they have cubs.
Yeah, females tend to go off, don't they, and have their babies alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They will then go, right, come back, we need help, or I'm over here, where's everyone else? Oh, we've all come over there, this is a great spot. We'll then meet back up. So roaring has multiple purposes. And because it has its multiple purposes, I think a lot of people go, we'll love listening to this is great. And then they don't realize they're actually just working out how strong they are before they fight someone else.
Yeah, is it worth it?
Yeah, it's almost like a matchup between the UFC. They're kind of standing oh, you look pretty big.
In the weigh-ins, yeah.
Yeah, the weigh-ins, exactly. But they do have other forms of communications. They will make little grunts, make little meows to one another.
Yeah.
Not quite that of a domestic cat, but
No.
they'll make little grunts towards each other. And they also have other forms of communication. So they will nestle into each other. They'll do little head rubs, which is very, very sweet.
Very sweet.
I love that. That'd be like a dream come true. I would never want it to happen just because I'd rather not have a lion coming too close to me.
Oh, God,
but imagine a head rub from a lion. That'd be pretty cool.
This is why I'm so excited for our Asiatic lions that are coming.
That's amazing.
I think we're getting a male and a female, maybe 1 or 2.
Ooh,
But cubs, babies,
that'd be amazing.
lion babies. That'd be absolutely amazing. But anyway, we digress.
Yes. They also do scent markings. That also helps establish territory and where each other have been. And they will also do communal and group licking with one another, which is sort of a familiar thing. But it's interesting how most of the time it's between male to male, female to female. Mm-hmm. So they stick to their sexes. But when they are kind of going to reproduction, it sometimes changes. Sometimes the male will then do it with the female. And they'll go, ooh, time to get frisky. Speaking of reproduction, there are some probably details we have to avoid when it comes to lions and many other animals because it's a bit graphic. But when it comes to their reproductive cycles, it's very interesting. So most of the females will actually sync up to one another. And the males will take advantage of this. They will then breed with as many as they can. And sometimes, actually, the females will want to breed more and go, come on, breed with us again. And there's, unfortunately, some not so nice photos. I recommend you do look it up, though. Family-friendly search on, though. Yeah. Of females basically fighting the male, going, I want to breed again.
Oh, God.
Yes. So they can be a little bit angsty about that. But once they've started to breed, they will have a gestation period of about 110 days. Quite a while. Yeah. And they'll have anywhere between 2 to 4 cubs.
Now, this is quite an important evolutionary trait, having more than one cub, because the survival rate of cubs is not great. So the more babies you have, the more chances that they will reach adolescence and reach adulthood. But so many lion cubs, they get hunted hyenas. They seek any opportunity. They're like enemies of the savannah, aren't they, really? But also diseases, other cubs, older cubs, anything like that. But some animals, not just lions, but if they can sense like if there's something wrong with their babies, can't they? Like any genetic defects or things like that. So they can sometimes eat their own babies as well, just because they're not going to survive. But that's just the way of the wild, really. I know meerkats do it quite a lot as well.
That level of just abandoning the child.
Yeah, exactly. If they're not going to make it, then it's survival of the fittest at the end of the day in the wild.
There's no point wasting precious resources trying to raise something that's may not even make it.
Exactly. It sounds horrible and harsh, but it is a circle of life.
It is,
Yeah.
unfortunately, yes. And this is a big problem in captivity, where many parent animals, they will, I don't think I can raise this poor child. And that's actually not such a bad thing in captivity, because we can rush in, and Tony's been part of this,
Yes, definitely.
raising things from cubs, as he mentioned, with the lovely tigers behind me.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, we have a lovely tiger poster behind me. It's very nice. But yes, that's where captivity is quite helpful.
Exactly, yeah.
We can step in, help these animals out where they would normally be rejected. And most of the time, they actually grow into fine-looking, lovely cats.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just a mixed match of hormones. They don't always quite bond with their young, which is unfortunate. But you're also quite right. They can also go, I don't think you're
It might be a little bit smaller at the runt of the litter.
Exactly,
they just have no chance. So.
Which is a bit of a shame, really. But
Yeah.
it's, as you said, circle of
It's
life.
just the reality, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, when they're born, they're usually about 1 to 2 kilograms in weight. So they're tiny little cats.
Yes.
They're much bigger than a little kitten, mind you, but still pretty small. And then the females, once they've had their baby, they'll usually separate themselves off from the rest of the pride. And this is when they'll let them kind of develop in secret almost, away from the pride. And it'll take about 7 days before their eyes fully open after being born. And then once they're more on their feet, they'll come back to the pride. And this can change a little bit sometimes, because if you have multiple who have cubs, they might come back a little bit sooner, because they will actually help each other out when it comes to raising their kids.
Childcare.
Exactly. Bit of childcare with lions.
Toddler group, yes.
Yes. So they will help each other. They'll produce milk for all the other cubs as well. So they all get a bit of it. And that means no one is left out. They all grow up very well once they've reached that stage. They still can get picked on. So leopards, hyenas, even occasionally a big bird might come along. And
Exactly,
across, yes. So they're not out of the woods just yet. But once they have reached a sizable age, females will usually stay in the pride. They do occasionally band off and go try and find another pride for themselves.
Yeah.
But once the boys have reached about 3 or 4, they will be kicked out. And they'll be kicked out quite aggressively sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you mind quickly explaining why inbreeding is such an important thing to avoid, and why the lions going off like this is so helpful?
Yeah, so interbreeding is a huge problem across a variety of different species in Africa, including cheetahs as well. So if two animals that are very genetically similar breed, it does cause genetic defects in the offspring. So in cheetahs, for example, where we fragmented their habitat so much, they're finding it very hard to be able to find a mate. So interbreeding is occurring, and it's causing genetic defects like bowed limbs, which is not very good when you're the fastest animal on the planet. But again, it's the same sort of things with lions as well. So it's very, very important that they are genetically diverse.
Yes.
But even in wildlife parks and zoos as well, so much goes into our breeding programs, like genetic testings and everything like that, before we're allowed to even breed our animals, because the population has to be genetically healthy and diverse to be able to keep the population going.
Yes, it's very true. And this is why lions, especially the males running off like this, being forced out of the pride, it's not just a territorial thing from the dad. It is also to basically say, go off and reproduce yourself.
Yeah.
And this means that the genetics spread around and there's less chance of inbreeding. There's always going to be the occasional one. But the chances are much...
Second cousin, twice removed.
Some kind of Tudor politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you mentioned the fragmentation there, and actually this is a really important point. So lions, they have a relatively large population. They're very well looked after in certain reserves.
Yes.
In certain reserves, I should add, yes, because of course there's still a lot of hunting when it comes to lions.
Yes.
So their conservation's been a little bit tricky. So they used to be found across all of Africa. I mean, north, above the Sahara, below the Sahara, pushing all the way down to the Cape. And unfortunately, this has now shrunk. Almost 90% plus of their range is gone.
Yeah, I think the population itself has gone down by 50% in the last 10 years or something like that.
It's tragic. And there's a very good reason why this continues to happen. So one of the big ones is, we can actually blame the Romans a little bit for this. So the Romans and many other cultures, they actually took and killed a lot of lions in above the Sahara. So there's a big reason why most of them are gone. There was a small fragment subpopulation there that went more recently extinct, but yeah, Romans, we can blame a little bit on that. But
damn Romans.
what did they give us? Sanitation. But yes, unfortunately, yes, there's some historical evidence that suggests that they wiped out a huge number of them and brought many of them to the Colosseum with them as well.
100%.
But in more recent years, the trouble is to do with farms. So farming, particularly traditional farmland, they will fragment the land aggressively.
Yeah.
And this will mean that their ability to move between certain reserves is now almost gone, which is why wildlife corridors are so important. But they keep on coming into conflict with people,
Yes.
I mean...
Especially on farms and things like that. Obviously, the farmers don't want them anywhere near their land. But when they've got cattle and things, it's just an easy meal for a lion. You know, it's kind of worth the risk for them because it's just going to McDonald's through the drive-through. You know what I mean? It's just picking up a bit of cattle.
No cattle drive-through.
Yeah.
And they will take that opportunity and they'll grab it. And that does mean they come into conflict with people.
Yeah.
And that will mean that the people will sometimes get eaten, and then sometimes the people will kill the lions. And it's a natural argument to be said that they're making a livelihood. They're just trying to survive down there. But it's also the lions' home.
Exactly.
And with their home shrinking so fast, and a lot of their prey species also declining as well, it means where are they going to go?
But the cattle are also affecting that though as well, aren't they?
Very true, yes. So
they're eating all their grazing, taking up all their land, so the herbivores are dispersing.
I could hear a political quote in that. So. But unfortunately, it is a big problem, and with less food availability for them, less of the herbivores, they are shrinking slowly. So whilst they may have a relatively larger population than some of the big cats in the world, they're still worth conserving, and especially their habitats, because they are one of the most amazing species.
Iconic, yeah.
Now, speaking of iconic, we are going to move on to our next session, which is what we learned from the wild.
Ooh.
So this is a little section which we'll do for some of our animals and just say, what have we actually learned from them? Because a lot of people think, they're just nice and pretty. And there's nothing more to them than that. But really, we learn a lot from studying nature. So one of the big ones is FIV, which is the feline immunodeficiency virus. So very similar to that of HIV in how it works. It's, once it develops, it strips away your immune system, and eventually you will, chances of survival unfortunately gets very, very low. And this happens with a lot of cats in the world, but lions are surprisingly, they're studied quite a lot for it because they're quite common throughout captive habitats. A lot of studies have been done on them, so a lot of ways that people are trying to save species from this particular virus is actually done through lions. And this can affect domestic cats as well. So actually, that's quite a very useful thing to know. Now, this is quite of an unusual one, which I was reading up about. So a lot of people study animals and the way they move for technology, because why do all the hard work yourself when evolution has done it for you? And so people have made robot lions.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that they are basically, imagine a quad bed. Quad bed?
A quad bed?
Quad bike, that's it. A quad bed, that's a bit interesting. I was thinking quadruped. So imagine a quad bike, but it has legs. Yes, so this is a bit of a more unusual one, a bit more at the cutting edge. But the idea is that you can go completely off terrain, and it can go almost anywhere. And they base most of its movement off of lions,
What is the purpose of this quad lion?
They believe that it's useful for like rescue situations, particularly in more mountainous areas for some reason.
It has to be I've just got this image in my head of this like quad bike lion going up a mountain now.
Yeah, it's a bit more of an interesting one.
I mean, if it works.
Now, another big thing as well is also, as I said, there are a lot of lions in captivity. I mean, you can't go into any zoo without really seeing a lion somewhere. As again, they're so famous. A lot of the studies to do with zoo conservation and stress is done on lions. Because, of course, stress in animals is something every zoo wants to avoid. And unfortunately, that does lead to animals maybe pacing, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Even the most well-behaved animals, most happy animals, they will pace a little bit and get a little bit stressed out. And a lot of those studies are done on lions because you want them to be happy. And when they are
Always.
an animal taken from quite large territories into now a small enclosure, you want them to be particularly happy.
100%. But I think that's why research and education within wildlife parks and zoos is so important. So any research that's done here or any wildlife park, it's all shared because our aim is to make their lives as good as possible. We want to enrich them. We enrich all our animals on a daily basis. We want to make sure that they're happy and they're healthy. And all this research goes into preventative healthcare, how we can make their environments better for them mentally and physically, so they're happy, because we want them to be happy.
Yes, we do want our lovely animals to be happy. I think no one will go into a zoo in the UK and think the team behind it are actively trying to make the animals' lives worse. But that being said, we don't always know everything, and which is why research like this is so important, because it will not just affect lions. But if we can learn what causes stress in certain other animals, we can also help improve them as well.
100%.
So lions are a big part of that as well. Now, another one which I find quite interesting, and this has been becoming more and more prevalent now, is AI.
Yes.
So a lot of researchers now use AI in their studies, sifting through huge amounts of data to make it very, very quick. And this is really important. And now, since lions are particularly famous, as we keep mentioning, a lot of studies are done on them. And this means that a lot of AI, which has been used to study them, can now be applied to other animals. So this is where it's become very useful. Like, it's the idea of a flagship species. You want to explain what a flagship species for those who are not too familiar?
Yeah, just quickly. Is that the one where they are the icon species that makes you want to protect them, and then in turn it protects everything else?
Exactly that, yes. So it's a great example of trying to protect an entire ecosystem. You can't really raise money for something that like a blee spot, unfortunately. People aren't going to care too much about it. But a lion, oh yes, people are going to care about that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for studies and research and getting money for those research.
Yeah.
And once you get the money for that, you can share that information and then you can apply it to everything else. Which is really, really important.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to quickly move on to our next topic. This is animal accounts. Ooh. This is quite fun.
Is it?
It is very fun.
It's so fun.
So, of course, many of these animals, they're going to have some stories behind them, either them by themselves or maybe with some people alongside them. And we're going to be telling a little bit about them. I think lions probably deserve their own episode about it because there's so many famous stories to do with lions.
Yeah.
But there's some very interesting ones about, for example, a female lion broke its jaw. Very, very bad. In the wild, that's usually a death sentence because you can't chew, you can't hunt for yourselves.
Yeah.
The pride actually went out of their way to help feed this poor lion until it eventually was strong enough to then fend for itself and then help out with the pride.
Oh, it survived.
Yeah.
Love that.
Which is an amazing story. So it's shown that these females essentially we are going to actually look after them. So
love that. Yes.
Love that. That's a great bit of communal work. Not sure if a coalition would do that for me, but a pride, yes.
All the politics, yes.
No, it's not very good at all, I'm afraid.
Oh, no, that's sweet. Do you know what annoys me about lions?
What?
Well, not actually technically like about the lions, but the phrase, lions are the kings of the jungle.
Yeah, that's one of those misconceptions.
Yeah.
It really bugs me.
Obviously, we work with kids quite a lot, and they're like, yeah, lions, kings of the jungle. And I'm like, who do I blame for this?
Yeah. Disney, maybe.
They've got a lot to answer for.
No, it's a common thing where something gets ingrained in pop culture, and then people 100%. See it as scientific facts almost.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
As you said, not even the biggest cat. And they don't even live in a jungle.
They don't live in a jungle. Tigers are the kings of the jungle, okay? There, I said it.
Yeah. I'm sure many Lion King fans are a bit upset by that now.
Don't get me started on mandrills.
Oh, goodness, yes. We'll have to do another episode on that sometime.
Disney bloopers.
So in 2017, a field guide, Chris Leinberg, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, narrowly survived a lioness attack in Botswana. And he distracted the lioness by yelling and waving a jacket, allowing him to escape with minor injuries. And is shared with lots of interviews how he did this. Because, of course, their eyesight's pretty good. But
excellent eyesight, smell. here.
Yeah.
They're just
But
amazing.
you just throw your jacket up, make yourself a little bit bigger. It's enough to kind of distract them. But that sort of example of how he escaped has been used in lots of different places and is used for other cats as well.
Oh, God.
It's not exclusive to just lions. But yeah, he got a very, very lucky escape. Now, there's been lots of stories, unfortunately, people probably been eaten by lions, maybe vice versa. I'm sure many have heard of poor Cecil the lion.
Yeah.
So he was an unfortunate lion that was killed by a hunter. Not going into his details too much, there's been lots of backlash about what he did.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about his particular pride is that he had cubs at the time, and this would usually be a very bad sign for the next male to come over and kill those lovely cubs. As you said, they want to preserve their genes. Why preserve somebody else's genes?
Yeah.
He actually didn't kill them. So Cecil's cubs are still alive and hopefully growing strong.
That's amazing.
So it does happen every now and then, but occasionally the males who take over a pride won't kill the other cubs. So it's one of those little bit of a heartwarming story, but he continues on in some way.
Yes, he lives on in spirit.
Yeah, lovely
Through
guy.
his children.
Now, there's also a little bit of fun to do with their history.
Yes.
So for those of you who like football, I'm sure you know about the lions and lionesses, the 3 lions on the shirt. You know a bit about this because I'm sure you've done enough talks about it. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, this is true. Remind me what king it was. Henry
III, I believe.
Yeah, Henry III. I think his brother. Like during that period of time in that century, exotic animals were used as gifts for the rich and the famous. So if you had a flamingo, boy, you were cool. So the fact that his brother bought him these 3 lions was absolutely amazing, and they were his favourites. Obviously, he had a menagerie of other exotic species. I think bears.
Polar bear.
Was it a polar bear? Yeah. And these huge, gorgeous animals were kept in the Tower of London.
Yeah. Not the best in...
not the best conditions. We have since moved on and learned from our mistakes. But zoos in general have got much bigger and better. But yeah, that's where the 3 lions from the English shirts come from.
Yes.
We had 3.
Yes, it's fantastic. So you're right about that. Brother-in-law brought in those lovely 3 lions. And now they're this symbol of, you find them on the royal crest and things now. So
exactly, yeah.
It's amazing how an animal not even associated with his country in the slightest way. I mean, you're not going to see lions around the UK.
Yeah.
They're a symbol.
Of England.
Yeah, and it all stems back to that.
Yeah.
And just quickly on that polar bear, yes. So King Haakon, the 4th of Norway, brought that polar bear. Apparently he used to ride it into certain proceedings.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a bit of almost like a chariot. So for those of you who are Narnia fans, like that, which is pretty cool, I must admit, even though probably not very ethically wise.
Well, I heard they also did dolphins and things like that. How would you even transport a dolphin?
I have no idea.
I just can't imagine a dolphin being in the Tower of London.
Because the ancient Egyptians had menageries like that.
Yeah, it's wall carvings of them all. They had bizarre animals.
I never know. There's also some stories of, and we'll talk about this when we do our giraffe episode at some point, which I know you'll be very excited for. You'll be telling me the facts. That many gifts of giraffes have been thrown around the world. China, France, and George IV for those bringing it back to the UK again.
Imagine if he loved giraffes and it was 3 giraffes.
That'd be so cool.
I'm going to go back in time.
Yeah. That'd be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Now, our last little thing, I wanted to bring this up, which is quite cool, is the white lions of Timbaviti. Mm-hmm. This is quite a cool South African mythology where white lions are seen as sacred animals.
Spiritual, aren't they?
Exactly, yes. Sent by the gods to restore harmony. The legend inspired Linda Tucker's book, Mystery of the White Lions, and Children of the Sun God. But what's quite fascinating about the white lions is that they're also in the Zulu folklore, is that they also bring about big social and ecological change. And there are a group of more white lions, particularly towards South Africa. And they're seen a lot more in favour now because the world is changing so much.
Yeah.
So white lions, which would this occasional symbol, like you'll see the occasional white lion, because of a little bit of inbreeding, they are now more prominent, which is coincided with a lot more ecological and social change.
Yeah.
Which I find quite fascinating. So there's quite a lot of mythology when it comes to these guys.
I love that sort of thing though. It's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on the
Yes.
mythology of animals because it'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
But we have now come to the end of our lovely
Have we?
podcast. Yes, we've talked about a fair bit, and I'm sure we'll go into more details about some of the lovely animals.
I've had a Roarsome time.
Don't act too happy. But there'll be more to talk about when it comes to lions. I'm sure we can do a whole history about them as well. And we'll get into more fascinating and lovely animals. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you like our content, please subscribe, follow whatever platforms you're listening or watching us on. And if you like this sort of content, we do actually have a bit of a cool YouTube channel with Explore Your Zoo, which is a great little series where we go behind the scenes and we get to see some of the lovely animals. The keepers are there, and you get to learn how we look after those lovely animals. So if you're curious how we're looking after a pregnant orangutan, watch that. That'll be very cool. But until then, guys, if you have any cool fun facts you want to let us know about, leave it in the comments. But until then, my name's Harry.
My name's Alice.
And you've just been watching What's Up with Zoo. Have a lovely day.
Bye.